Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and we are continuing the Batman films with the 1995 action adventure crime comedy Batman Forever. Here is your trivia question for today. What are all the potential names Edward comes up with before the Riddler? The answer will be at the end of this video. In this film, we return to Gotham City, where Batman is still the Caped Crusader and is still serving out justice. However, though, it appears as his alter ego, Bruce Wayne, has decided to get some cosmetic surgery. He looks a little bit sexier, but unfortunately, he's lost a little bit of his personality. Currently, the criminal Two-Face is running rampant throughout the city. Now, he used to be the district attorney, Harvey Dent, but he had some acid thrown on him, which apparently changed him quite a bit. I mean, look how he used to look. To try and help stop Two-Face, they bring in a criminal psychologist named Chase Meridian. Now, I don't know if she's going to be at all that helpful, as her main concern seems to be that she's so very thirsty for Batman. Now, while all of that is going on, there's also an inventor who works at Wayne Enterprises who has come up with an idea of how to manipulate brainwaves. He ends up trying the invention on his boss, but what he finds out is that it in fact can also pull out intelligence. And this causes him to make a change as well, and he becomes the Riddler. Now, it doesn't actually stop there. In fact, Two-Face at one point shows up to a circus as he's going to use a bomb on Gotham. A bunch of acrobats, known as the Flying Graysons, end up stopping him, but are killed in the process. And of course, their youngest son, Dick Grayson, ends up having to watch this all. Also, to just make things worse, they decided to add a couple extra relatives into the mix, when in the comic books it was just his parents originally. Why did you have to kill so many family members? Then, of course, in the weirdest decision, they decide to ward him over to the billionaire Bruce Wayne, which makes no sense. Also, apparently Chris O'Donnell's version of Robin is supposed to be around 15 or 16 years old. I don't think so. And in what probably comes as no surprise, he discovers the Batcave and figures out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. In once again, what is more bad decision making, they go back and forth arguing, but eventually Dick Grayson is allowed to join him as a crime fighter. Alfred, of course, is no help, as he's actually the one who decided to make a costume for him. But then again, this is the same guy who decided to let Vicky Vale into the Batcave in the first film. So, with the Riddler and Two-Face now working together, will the duo of Batman and Robin be able to stop them? So, for this third Batman movie, they brought in Joel Schumacher as the director. They apparently felt that Tim Burton's version for his third film was a bit too dark. And since Burton wasn't coming back, Danny Elfman, the composer of the first two films, didn't come back either. Apparently, before choosing Schumacher, Sam Raimi was a high possibility as the director. Schumacher did at least acknowledge Tim Burton, though, as this character appearing at the end of the film was Dr. Burton and was named after him. As for what could have been, Tim Burton's third and what would have been final Batman movie was going to be called Batman Continues, and it was going to have Robin Williams as the Riddler and Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. Michael Keaton was in fact set to come back as Batman for the third film, but when Burton left, and when he found out what Schumacher was going to do and making it a little bit more lighthearted, he decided to step down. Now, there is some contention as to whether or not Robin Williams was actually going to be the Riddler. There's one rumor that apparently he turned it down immediately as he was upset about being dropped from being the Joker in the first film. There's also a rumor that he was going to be the Riddler until Schumacher took over and then he was dropped again. Also, in the original script, the character of the Riddler was actually going to be Lyle Heckendorf instead of Edward Nygma. And his technology was going to be called Heck-Tech instead of Nigma-Tech. He would have also stalked Bruce Wayne to the circus, and while there, he would have found a leprechaun costume, and this is where the basis for his costume would have started. The end of the film was also going to have a maze that Batman had to go through that would show different images of the Joker, Catwoman, and Penguin, since the Riddler was able to break into Bruce Wayne's psyche. When Tim Burton left, they also had to buy out Billy D. Williams' contract so that they could put in whoever they wanted as Two-Face. Something else from the original script was that apparently Bruce Wayne was going to use the riddles from the Riddler as an excuse of how to date Chase Meridian. Also in the Burton version, Chase Meridian was going to be played by Rene Russo. Now, Nicole Kidman may have actually had a role in the film after all, though, as Burton was toying with adding more villains in, and potentially was going to cast her as Poison Ivy. Another possibility was putting the Scarecrow in as the main villain and having Two-Face and Riddler as side villains. Robin was going to be a part of it from the beginning, but apparently he was going to be played either by Leonardo DiCaprio or Marlon Wayans. There was one big difference between Schumacher and Burton is that he was actually a big fan of the comic books way before becoming a director of the film. In fact, when he was brought on, he was hoping to do a prequel film of Batman Year One. He also wanted to do something dark and serious, but the studio told him that they wanted it to be lighthearted. But it was still Schumacher's choice to have pastels, black lights, rave lights, and even making the Batman and Robin costumes have anatomical parts because he wanted them to resemble Greek gods. With all of the lighthearted choices, I definitely feel this was a lot closer to the 1966 Batman. There are, in fact, even references to that series as well. At one point, Dick Grayson says, "Holy rusted metal, Batman," which is a type of statement that Burt Ward would always do. And of course, when the Batmobile went up the side of the building and passed by windows, just like they did on the series. Even though I think Michael Keaton was a better Batman, I did enjoy Val Kilmer's version as well. Apparently, he got the role due to how well he performed in the movie Tombstone. Other actors that were potentially up for the role of Batman were William Baldwin, Keanu Reeves, Daniel Day-Lewis, Ralph Fiennes, Ethan Hawke, Alec Baldwin, Johnny Depp, and Tom Hanks. Jim Carrey, of course, did a wonderful job as the Riddler. He did help design his costume as well, and apparently his original idea was to shave a question mark into his hair, but he was about to go to court to finalize his divorce and decided not to do so. Other actors that were up for the role of Riddler were Michael Jackson, Matthew Broderick, Steve Martin, and Mickey Dolenz. All of the Riddler's riddles were actually designed by Will Shortz, who was also known as the Puzzle Master and was an editor for New York Times crossword puzzles. So, I did enjoy Tommy Lee Jones' performance in this film, but I was not a big fan of it. Apparently, the makeup for Two-Face actually took up to 4 hours to put on. Tommy Lee Jones apparently also did not like Jim Carrey at all. In fact, when they first met, he told him, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery." Other actors that were up for the role of Two-Face were Mel Gibson, Al Pacino, Nicolas Cage, Robert De Niro, and Willem Dafoe. It may be hard to see, but on Two-Face's coin are scratched in the letters HD for Harvey Dent. Apparently, quite a few comic book fans complained when Two-Face kept flipping the coin at Wayne Manor. The reason they were annoyed is they thought that he was flipping it until he got what he wanted. But the actual reason for this is he was deciding each of the fates for Bruce, Chase, and Alfred. Chris O'Donnell as Dick Grayson slash Robin was pretty good. Not who I would have wanted to be there, but I did think he did a good job. Also, for comic book fans, did you happen to notice that his outfit is actually closer to Tim Drake's outfit than it is to Dick Grayson's? This is not all that surprising, though, as the version of Robin in this film is kind of a combination of three Robins: Dick Grayson, for his family being a circus family, Jason Todd, because his father was killed by Two Face, and Tim Drake actually put some time and effort into discovering the identity of Batman. As for actors who could have been Robin, there was Mark Wahlberg, Matt Damon, Jude Law, Ewan McGregor, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, Toby Stevens, Scott Speedman, Michael Worth, Renoli Santiago, Danny Dyer, Milo Ventimiglia, and Ben Affleck. By the way, you know the scene where Chris O'Donnell pulls up in the Batmobile? Well, apparently he insisted on doing it instead of the stuntman. He ended up crashing it into a curb and denting the fender. One of Dick Grayson's suggestion as his superhero name in the movie is Nightwing, which is actually a name that he uses later in the comics. Olympic gymnast Mitchell Gaylord was actually the stunt double for Chris O'Donnell. Chase Meridian was an original character created for this film. I did feel Nicole Kidman didn't do a bad job, I just did not like the character. Other actresses that were up for that role were Sandra Bullock, Cindy Crawford, Jean Triplehorn, Linda Hamilton, and Robin Wright. These characters in the film are called Sugar and Spice, and they're played by Drew Barrymore and Debbie Mazur. And apparently in the original script, they were called Leather and Lace. Other actresses that were up for either of these roles were Jenny McCarthy, Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon, Christina Applegate, Melissa Joan Hart, and Tara Reid. The R&B group En Vogue actually makes a small cameo in this film. This is also the first live-action appearance of Arkham Asylum. There's even a small reference towards Superman in the film, as Bruce mentions that the circus must be halfway to Metropolis by now, and that's where Superman resides. So when it comes to the film Batman Forever, I do still really enjoy the movie. I thought some of the characters weren't all that great, and I didn't like how the villains both tried to be the Joker, but I am going to give this movie a 4 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, What are all the potential names Edward comes up with before the Riddler? The Puzzler, the Gamester, Question Mark Man, and Captain Kill. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.